Michael noticed it in the quiet space between tasks. Not a dramatic loss of energy, not burnout, just the absence of drive. The urgency that used to propel him forward had gone quiet, and in its place was something unfamiliar: stillness. At first, he mistaked it for laziness. He watched himself sit longer than usual before starting anything. He felt the internal pause before responding to messages. He noticed how effort now required conscious choice instead of momentum. And a familiar voice began to whisper, "What's wrong with you? You used to move faster than this." Michael had learned to listen to his body. He had learned to pace himself. He had learned to choose fewer inputs. But this felt different. This felt like the engine itself had gone quiet, and life, inconveniently, hadn't paused in response. There was still things to do, people to show up for, days that needed living. Michael realized that what unsettled him wasn't the lack of motivation, it was the story he was telling himself about it. He had been taught quietly and persistently that forward movement required desire, inspiration, or drive. That without motivation, action meant force. But what if that wasn't true? One afternoon, instead of waiting to feel ready, Michael asked himself a different question. What's the smallest movement I can make without betraying myself? Not the most productive, not the most impressive, just the most honest. So he stood up, not with enthusiasm, but with agreement. He answered one message instead of all of them. He completed one small task and let that be enough. He allowed himself to move without trying to generate energy first. What surprised him was this: movement didn't create motivation, but it created continuity. There was something stabilizing about that. Michael noticed that when he stopped demanding motivation, he stopped resisting movement. He wasn't forcing himself forward, he was allowing himself to continue. This wasn't resignation, and it wasn't pushing. It was cooperation. He began to understand that some seasons don't offer inspiration, they offer reliability. And reliability doesn't require excitement, it requires presence. There was relief in letting go of the idea that every action needed to feel aligned, purposeful, or energized. Sometimes alignment looks like staying with life, even when it feels quiet inside. Michael realized that his nervous system wasn't asking for motivation, it was asking for trust. Trust that he wouldn't abandon himself just because the spark wasn't there. Trust that movement could be gentle and still meaningful. Trust that showing up quietly still counted. The shame he'd been carrying began to loosen. He wasn't failing to feel motivated. He was learning a different form of strength, a quieter one that didn't announce itself, one that didn't rely on adrenaline. If you're listening and recognizing this place, the place where motivation has thinned but life hasn't, know this: you don't need to push yourself back into who you were. You don't need to wait until you feel ready. You are allowed to move forward one honest step at a time. Not because you're driven, but because you're here. And that is enough. We'll keep going gently.